All right, good evening. Broadcasting for the IWC Self Synchronization team, this is Self Sync Live. Good evening and welcome to our broadcast. I'm Michaela and I'll be your host for tonight's session. Also with us from our IWCsync team is Dave, working behind the scenes making this broadcast happen. Before we start tonight's show, a little bit about what we do. The purpose of the IWC Self Synchronization is to share unclassified information to enhance our collective situational awareness and facilitate the development of a common Navy information community culture by allowing us to better engage across disciplines and sub-communities, amongst ourselves and with leaders from our community. The live sync sessions offers us a way to hear from and engage with members of our community we might not otherwise have the opportunity to interact with. The IWC Self Sync team is comprised of volunteers from all corners of the IWC, to include active duty and reserve, officer, enlisted, and civilians, all working anonymously on your behalf. If we had lawyers, they'd probably tell us to read a disclaimer about the sponsorship of this broadcast, so here it is. The IWC Self Sync team is an independent group not officially sponsored by the Department of Defense, the U.S. Navy, or the information warfare community. And honestly, that independence makes it much more effective. Again, to reiterate, the information and opinions presented in this forum by the IWC Self Sync team and our guests should not be construed as official in any way. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's move on to our show. So joining us tonight is Captain Heidi Berg, currently serving as the PERS 47 in Millington over the IW community, in addition to being the FAO Officer Detailer and the Senior Cryptologic Warfare Detailer. Joining her is Lieutenant Commander Brian Schultz, the JO Cryptologic Warfare Detailer, and Lieutenant Steve Cortez, the Cryptologic Warfare LDO, CW, and New Accession Detailer, along with Cyber Detailer. So thank you all for joining us tonight. We really appreciate the time that you've taken. If you wouldn't mind starting off just introducing yourselves and maybe giving us a little more about your backgrounds and then what you do in Millington, and we'll move on to questions that have been posed prior to the show, and we'll also be able to answer questions that come in as we go through the show.
Sure, great. Thank you, first of all, for having us on tonight. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for us to reach out to folks that we may not be able to interact with on a daily basis. So I'm Captain Heidi Berg. As you heard, PERS 47. I have been a cryptologic warfare officer from my commissioning back in 1991. We'll turn it over to the rest of the team here, but I've done, from DURSUP to PCS afloat on board the 6th Fleet staff, command of NIAC Bahrain, cross-detailed major command at DIA, and have the opportunity here to come down and serve as PERS 47 as well as the Cryptologic Warfare Senior Detailer. And with that, Brian?
Brian Schultz, welcome to everybody dialing in from around the globe. It's great to be on here with y'all. I'm the PERS 47 JO detailer for the Cryptologic Warfare community. My background, I've done subsurface and air, as well as a tour at Joint Special Operations Command. And I was XO out in Colorado, and now I'm here as the JO detailer. Steve?
Howdy, y'all. Steve Cortez, the LDO, CWO, New Accession, and Cyber Detailer. I am a previous CTT in my enlisted career. Started off flying out of K-Bay, Barbers Point, moved on to Fort Meade as a ME staff intern, went to ONI, ran the signals lab there, went to USS Cape St. George for my ship tour, got commissioned out of there as an LDO. First tour was out of Nyack, Georgia flying, and then I moved on to Naval Special Warfare Development Group for a couple years, and after that landed here in wonderful Memphis.
So what we do down in Millington is we're in charge of officer distribution. So it really is in the traditional detailing that most officers are familiar with, the discussion of where you go next when it comes to different opportunities from fellowships, scholarships, as well as standard PCS detailing. We also look at records maintenance and can assist in that process as well. But the primary responsibility of what we do is the distribution and running of administrative selection boards. We have one admin selection board within the information warfare community, and that is the 05 and 06 milestone and command screening board that we run once a year. This year, we're beginning for the first time to do a second admin selection board, and that is our 04 milestone and leadership selection board that will be held in April of this year, commencing in 17 April. And that, I'm hoping we'll have some questions on that. We're really looking forward to talking to folks about these admin selection boards and screening boards, what it means to your career, and what that means in terms of milestone and the evolution of milestone in your career development as well.
Great, thank you so much, ma'am. I know a lot of people are looking forward to seeing what those precepts and what those boards are going to look like and what you'll be looking for in our 04s. Getting to some of our questions to start off with. So what is the reason behind orders being released so slow? And is there any hopes of remedy? What's behind this?
Absolutely, and as everyone realizes, and this has been going on for many years, that during the summer usually we get a finite amount of money every year that comes out of NPN. So it's the same money that goes to pay the Navy paychecks every other week that goes into releasing orders. It is separate than the funding that is used for retirement orders. We traditionally have looked to have a 6-month lead time on orders. As the funding has gotten tighter and tighter, and this is, again, we're in a continuing resolution, so we're operating over the prior year's budget cycle, we've had constraints in the amount of money that we've gotten on a month-by-month basis. Last year, we had an orders freeze that took place. It was close to 3.5 weeks of no orders being released. And at times we got down to less than 30 days from an orders release. This year we're trying to get ahead of that problem and really managing, again, looking for where we can do voluntary PRD extensions, where it's not going to hurt someone from a career progression, looking for opportunities to do no cost move and other ways to get some cost savings. Right now, we're averaging about a 3-month window. And that is, as funding gets released down to NPN, it gets released down to PERS board, gets distributed across all of the Navy officer and enlisted orders, and then we're able to release orders on the basis of how much funding is available, knowing that we have to retain some for limb-due orders and emergency release, et cetera. So we have to maintain a baseline. Right now, we just are looking to get an additional $35 million. So we're hoping to build out over the course of the next couple of months to that 3-month lead time and avoid the summer slowdown where we kind of hit an orders freeze. When it comes to no-cost orders, we can release those significantly ahead, and we are still looking to do 6 months advance for retirement orders. And again, and everyone is aware that that is not sufficient, and we really should be looking to try and get back to the 6 to 9 months lead time. But as of right now, our focus is getting to a 3-month lead time for orders. And again, it's a function of until we pass a budget, we'll be continuing to exist under continuing resolution criteria and constraint.
Okay, interesting. I actually have a question off of that. Due to those budgeting constraints, will you see maybe a greater trend of having people just stay in the same geographic area, but maybe pick up orders where they could hit a cyber wicket, or they could hit other type of spectrum within our community?
Yeah, and I'll have these guys chime in as well for their constituent base, but that's one of the really, I think, good things about the cryptologic warfare community is generally we have fleet concentration areas, particularly in the Fort Meade area, Norfolk, San Diego, but predominantly in Fort Meade, where you're able to, at the 05 and 06 level, hit a variety of those key career path wickets that you really need to get, or tickets that you need to get in the same geographic location. But we still value diversity. We value diversity in our target set. We value diversity in both the 3 pillars of cyber, electronic maneuver warfare, and SIGINT. So there is that balance of, in order to get that diversity in your record, where you can have 2, sometimes 3 tours in the same geographic area, in order to get that kind of diversity, it's likely that you will need a PCS move at that point. But to turn it over to Brian and Steve, they may have some other views from their constituent base.
Yeah, I'd say, Ken Berg, really hit on it. There's some locations this is possible. When you think of Norfolk, you think of Fort Meade, you think of Hawaii, where you can do multiple tours and, change commands and change platforms and change what we do, substantially, and have it, look fine on paper. There's others, when people just want to go to Colorado and stay there, obviously that's not possible. So I think it's a one-on-one, situation with the detailer. If we can make it work, where it financially makes sense for the Navy, it personally makes sense for an individual who wants to stay on a location, then professionally, it keeps them on track for that next pay grade, then we look to do it. We have officers right now in the NCR, that find themselves at Fort Meade, at OpNav, at Nick Wedge, and then back to, Fleet Cybercom. That's 4 tours in a row. They're very, diverse. And that's a well-managed career that hit the wickets that they're supposed to hit, as far as, career progression and upwardly mobile tours, not, tours that are, kind of on par with what they've been doing. So it works for us. I think, the CWEs and some of the warrants and LDOs have some different pieces of that. So I'll let Steve hit that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing that we also put out is just timing is critical. So, I mean, sometimes timing is going to really dictate where you're going to end up. So, I mean, you can ask and ask and ask, hey, I want to be here, I want to be there. But bottom line, if the billet's not there, we can't do it. So sometimes it works out, and when it doesn't, we ask just that, flexibility, things like that. And, keeping in mind what the prescribed career path is. So, anytime an officer does ask us, hey, well, I want to do something similar, which we consider a lateral move, we will, provide them with the best, guidance we can and let them know, hey, this may not be the best choice for you. It is open and I do have to fill this billet, but if you do choose to do this, we only ask that you understand that this could be detrimental to your career and impact you later on for promotion boards and things like that.
All right, great, thank you. Just to interject real fast, a word from Dave. For those in the audience, if you're not able to see the chat window on YouTube, try and rejoin from a desktop browser. All right, that's all of our techie stuff for now. Thank you guys for that. We've had a lot of questions come up in the meantime regarding the 04 milestone screening. So I'm going to ask a couple questions in a row and let them kind of digest. So the first one being Admiralty's recent letter regarding the 04 milestone screening does it indicate any changes to the business rules for detailers, or is it merely just codifying what already takes place?
Nope, absolutely. This is a significant sea change for us. Now, overall, as everyone's aware, we started doing milestone screening about 6 years ago. Before that, we had operational jobs, shore jobs, we had a career path, but there hadn't been a formal screening process. And every year we continue to tweak and refine that process to both be better in terms of how do we ensure we're putting the right people in the right jobs, as well as this provides an opportunity to bring the entire IWC together for those year groups and get a good sense of what our talent base is. So previously we had, folks had to volunteer for milestone, 04 milestone, and then they would talk to their detailer. We in the CW community would advertise it, would get all the folks who have applied, and then slate the best people to go into those positions. And of course, timing also matters as well. What this does is provides a finite period of time at year of selection, the year you select row 4 and the year after. So you get 2 looks for milestone, year selection and year selection +1. Once you screen for milestone, you will go to a milestone assignment. That is, again, we're looking to get people into their milestone assignments early. Then what matters is as you go into your 05 board, your performance in milestone will be highlighted as it has been in the convening order language for the past several years. Highlights that performance in milestone is one of those key areas which are being evaluated, and that is the key operational assignments with sufficient complexity and leadership experience that best prepare you for the next higher pay grade. The key difference that we're going to see is XOs, 04 XOs at 05 commands had traditionally been within designator. We did some, that pendulum's been swinging on cross detailing for a while. What we intend to do is look at cross-detailing our executive officers at the 04 level to the maximum extent possible, where it makes sense. If we have a cross-detailed CO, like we have right now at NIAF Whidbey Island, we clearly would not want to have a cross-detailed XO. We will have an 1810 XO. So that does change the business rules, and what we'll be doing is bringing together that detailing team with the group of screened executive officers to build that slate. And the 04 slate process will be much more aligned with what we're currently doing for the 05 milestone slate. So after the board process, all of those milestone screened officers will then look to be slated within the next tour. So it's not everyone's going to get ripped to fill and they're going to go to their milestone assignment within 12 months. We'll be looking if they're in a JDAL billet, when they become available, but we'll get that screening process done early, get folks to their 04 milestone assignment earlier, and ensure then that we've got an apples to apples comparison of performance in milestone being evaluated for your 05 selection board.
And I'll just add on to that, the big business role I think that changes, how this changes the game for everybody is if you didn't screen for milestone, you're not going to milestone no matter how much you beg. The second part of that is maybe that there are some folks that are out there that are 04s that intend to retire as an 04 that don't ever want to go to a milestone. So it brings in a whole nother aspect of career management that is, you said submit a don't pick me letter to the 04 milestone admin board to make sure you're not selected, you're not screened for that 04 milestone screening. Because then if you are screened, you're going to milestone, or you're going to have to formally decline milestone and have that annotated in your record. So it changes, there's a career management aspect of this that, is going to come into play too. That's going to really play out over the next year that, 05's had to deal with this for a while, but at the 04 level, we've not dealt with it in the same way. So that's going to be another kind of shift that we see, from the detailer side.
And for the OIC positions, those, we expect will require a level of technical expertise, and so we intend to maintain those within designators. So those won't be cross-detailed.
Okay, that's good. That's good to specify because there's been several questions that have come up regarding is it just an 1810 specific milestone screening board, or is it open to the entire community? Who is this targeted at right now?
So it will be for the entire information warfare community, and much like we do for the 05 command and milestone screening boards, the board membership, the voting membership, will consist of officers from each of the 4 communities that will sit with a flag officer as the board president. So we'll send out, we've got some frequently asked questions that we're in the process of finalizing that we'll send out to the group. We'll also get slides out to the COs. I see folks are interested in what are the command opportunities that the other designators offer, what are the EXO and OIC opportunities, and again, we'll focus on the executive officer opportunities that are out there. We'll still continue to look to slate our milestone positions, at the 9 to 12 months out point. So as you get screened though, you will end up then being, as a screened officer, we'll be talking to your detailer for the next assignment at your PRD to go into those milestone positions. And again, there's no AQD right now that is associated with a milestone screening or an executive officer screening at this time. So that will be one that we'll look to as we're creating that those AQDs. In the interim period, we'll encourage people to ensure that that's documented in their fitness reports. So at the statutory boards, they'll understand that someone is EXO screened, which again is an indicator, it's a discriminator in terms of quality cut.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am. And I think they answered the question of the timeline. What will the timeline be for the 04 who are going to be looked at for EXO in terms of if they get looked at and selected, it'll be on their next tour. And also when you brought up the AQDs, there's a question I'll probably ask later on because it doesn't tie into this conversation regarding AQDs and if there's going to be a scrub and an update just because there's so many different positions that have come up recently within our community. Or maybe you can address that now and then we can jump back to the conversation with one in particular was with regard to watch positions at national sites. There isn't currently an AQD for that, and one question that was submitted is that something that can also be looked at as well because it does vary from other watch positions that do have AQDs.
So is this for the battle watch?
I think it's actually for the national watch. I know at my particular command, this has been a topic of discussion among several people, and so because you brought up AQD, I thought I'd throw it in here real fast.
No, sure, absolutely. I'll just talk to the battle watch, then you can add in any other watch AQD. So, I mean, the intent of the battle watch captain AQD, it's a URL AQD that they had owned. It was for those that end up qualifying and having weapons release authority. So when you look at say a battle watch at the the NCTS is different than the battle watch for the U.S. Fifth Fleet. So if we were going to, and the intent of AQDs is to give the statutory board membership and give the boards a sense of the experience or qualifications that the member has. So we want to ensure that the AQD accurately reflects, and again, this went to all of the AQD work that had been done to define, when we look at our cyber expertise and basic level direct support, to refine those AQDs so we really give a sense of what folks are doing. So NAV I4 has brought this up, and they have the task right now to look at if we need to create a specific AQD that addresses the operations that are conducted within the information warfare community from a watch standpoint. And we can provide an update later. I don't have one at this time as to what the expectation is as to when that would be, if that will be approved and when it would be rolled out.
Yeah, I think on the AQD front, I'll just make a couple of comments. The detailers, we're kind of the last to know is kind of an easy way to look at this, right? We don't own the AQD process. The TICOM does. So what happens is the TICOM is the adjudicator of AQDs, and we've worked with them to be allowed to, the ones that are easy, when you say, hey, if you have 300 flight hours, then we can award you the BIA AQD. Well, I don't need you to vet that through the TICOM, so they can tell me that, yes, they looked at your paperwork and you have 300 flight hours, therefore I can award you the AQD. You can do that directly with me. So we've worked that piece out. That's one thing I'd say is, a lot of that, they look at the detailers because we are the ones that are actually, the monkeys on the keyboard putting it in your record, but it's the TICOM that owns the process. Second, I think I kind of would just say we want to watch out for is that we don't all become AQD hunters out there, because we have some really, really good AQD hunters in our community, and the IPs are worse than we are. But so if you look at your OSR, your officer summary record in your NBOL, you see two different things when you kind of look at the bottom. You see those 30 spots, and you want them all filled up, so it makes you feel good about yourself. But when you look at them, the first couple things that you see in there are your actual NOBCs, and those are documenting what your experience has been. And so if you are an IWO at a national site, you see an NOBC documenting your experience that you did a tour at a national site, and that's seen by the promotion board, that's seen by everybody. And as you look down there, then you start seeing AQDs as you kind of go through that OSR. So there's not an AQD for it right now. What you see is the IWO national NOBC, and then on your performance summary record, when that comes up, primary duty watch officer, it's another thing that's called out by the board. So there's two different ways it's already seen by a promotion board, and I know the TICOM's looking at it as an AQD. Does it make sense, or are we just adding a third way that we're seeing the same information that's already out there?
All right, good point. I appreciate you going into that a little bit. I want to circle back because we have one more question regarding the 04 milestone boards. Are there going to be two separate boards for the 04 EXO and for 04 milestone? And if so, what year mark are those 04s going to be looked at for milestone boards, or any prerequisites?
So for these boards, we're going to convene a single board for 04 milestone and leadership, just as we do a single board for the 05-06 milestone and leadership positions. What they are, they're separate panels. So you'll have an eligible group that'll go there'll be a single one for each designator by milestone. So cryptologic warfare officers will have a panel that'll look for milestone, and there will be a broader information warfare community, a single panel that will all be together getting screened for executive officer. So, or the same criteria for executive officer, and then separate panels for OIC. That will be at the year of selection +2, and you will again have two looks. So your first look will be 2 years after you were selected for 04, and then you will have another look at 3 years after you were selected for 04. So after those, you'll have, again, two looks to be screened for the executive officer, and then after you get that, there is not, because we will be screening more than there are opportunities, there's not a guarantee that you will go to an executive officer or OIC position. So that's different than how we do command screening at the 05 and 06 level, where if you screen for command, you will go to command. And our expectation for milestone is you screen for milestone, you will go to milestone. We intend to screen more than the limited opportunities that we currently have. And then the intent is that, from timing, skill set, best fit and fill, we will look to slate folks to executive officers positions, based on record as well as screening code. But if you do not screen for milestone, you will not be eligible to be screened for executive officer. You don't have to be in or have completed your milestone, but the expectation is based on the timing and the screening rates that you will have completed your milestone prior to going to XO. But your eligibility to screen is hinged on your ability to screen for milestone.
All right, thank you, ma'am. And then just to clarify for the XO positions, those are where members of the community overall would have the opportunity to potentially cross-detail at the 04 level, where the milestone is specifically, it's community specific.
Yes, those are the opportunities. So they will still retain their discreetly, their designator as the executive officer for the billet, but we'll look to cross-detail them. So it means that, for say in Intel 04 billet, at NEIC, we may have an oceanographer there 1 year, a CW relieves them, but we will look to have it cross-detailed, i.e. not intelligence. The same thing for our NIOC. So NIOC Colorado XO, we've looked to have one of the other designators come in. And again, this is to the maximum extent possible. Where we've got, officer colo issues and EFM and other types of issues, we'll look to accommodate that, but we don't want to overly constrain ourselves. We're looking to have it at the maximum extent possible. But the that slating process is, we continue to look to do best fit and fill. And again, it's not intended that we're going to rip people out of their milestones to get them to XO. We're looking at what makes sense in terms of timing, in terms of slate, and we will get a list of all of those positions that we are going to be slating for the following year out to those eligible officers, and we'll also be, each of the junior officer detailers are going to be looking to get preferences, so to have a sense of what folks' preferences are. But again, with all of these senior positions, your preferences are interesting and certainly taken into account, but may not be always the driving factor in the slating process.
Yeah, just to clarify, so the milestones are not cross-detailed. Only the XO positions are cross-detailed. So just make sure that we're clear on that one. And then for everybody that's out there in YouTube land, if you're following us on MilSuite, you can go on MilSuite. You can already see the next round of 04 milestones that we will be slating after this board in April, as well as the next round of the 04 leadership positions that will be up, in the CW community are available as well. And we'll work on getting the cross-detailed, positions from the other communities up there for everyone as well. So those are all available on MilSuite right now.
And in addition to these jobs that we're looking at from the executive officer side, we are looking at the billet base across the board to see where there are opportunities to cross-assign. So where you're assigned as a cryptologic warfare officer, but at an intelligence command. As we look at those billet, and we're looking for where are the opportunities to do that. So you are working in your designator using your skill set, but you're getting exposed to the other communities. So it's a little different than cross-detailing, which is where you're at. When I was CO, I was the commanding officer of an intel command. This is where you are operating as an 1810, but in a different venue at other communities. And we have a few of those opportunities now. We are looking to increase those opportunities at the 04 and below level.
All right, good stuff. Thank you so much. Shifting gears a little bit, another question that came in earlier. Other than NPS and the war colleges, what other graduate education or pro-dev tours are there out there?
TWI.
Absolutely.
Pro-dev.
You want to do the tours and membership first? Okay.
So before Brian jumps in on NPS and all the graduate education opportunities that we end up having, part of Sailor 2025 brought two new opportunities that we hadn't had previously. One is tours with industry, and so that is an opportunity to go and serve 1 year at a company. We have someone at Apple and someone at Microsoft, as well as an intelligence officer that is assigned with USAA. Those are TICOM approved. They look at what is the company that we want to go to. It is Navy-wide, great opportunity, and we really are focused at trying to get folks that are 04 milestone complete prior to going into an assignment like that. We also have a civilian, now I'm forgetting the title of it, the civilian.
Oh, the Fleet Scholars Education Program.
Fleet Scholar Education, FSEP program. So that is one that we had 4 quotas. We now have 3 quotas that we end up doing. And again, because so much of our graduate education focus is at Navy War College, at National Defense University, and primarily at Navy Postgraduate School, we don't feel that we have as great of a need. And that is one that, again, we do the selection within the flag community leads to select someone, and you go out and serve at a civilian university to get a degree ideally related to the program. And this is designed, that program in particular was designed as a URL retention tool, but obviously we get to reap the benefit of it. Then there is also, we had a cyber civils job that had been, or cyber civils quotas that had been assigned to Mississippi University of Mississippi State. And that contract has been ended, so that we will no longer have the cyber civils program. But for the rest of our graduate education opportunities.
Yeah, so here's a quick snapshot for everybody. And I know I think there was an IWCsync live session on this a while back as well, where this was discussed. But so right now, the community's invested heavily at NPS. And right now we've increased our quotas NPS to 31 billets a year plus 1 PhD billet, which is 4 times more than we had back when I went through there back in the early to mid 2000s. So we've increased heavily there. So we have 10 EE quotas a year, 10 computer science quotas a year, 10 cyber systems operations quotas a year, and 1 space systems operation quotas a year. We even have one of those earmarked for an LDO. So LDOs, we're also looking out for you guys, and because y'all are going to become 1810s anyways, or you're getting out of the Navy. So we're looking out for you and trying to keep you on track. Secondary to that, so that's NPS. And then everybody, of course, comes out and says, well, those are the STEM master's degrees. That must be the only thing I should be able to do. Well, the answer is, well, no. We still fund, 7 quotas a year right now at the war colleges at the 03 and 04 level. So obviously, we still value other master's degrees because we still fund those other master's degrees. So we can get you the Navy War College, the Air Force War College, the Army War College. So that's it, kind of in our bubble. And then there's the other programs that are out there. There's the Olmsted Scholarship, where you go and you study in a foreign program. There's the Federal Executive Fellowship, where you can go on a fellowship to a think tank or to another university as a fellow. And then there's the Palm Mill Master's Program. And those are all big Navy programs that you apply to, not through your detailer, though we have to endorse them, but you apply to the big Navy programs and look for the big Navy messages. We do the best we can to make sure that those are being seen by everybody. When the nav admins come out, we email them out, we put them on Mill Suite, trying to keep everybody in the loop. But just keep checking message traffic for when those are advertised. Usually there are summer application time frame for all those.
But if I can foot stomp one thing, and that is, despite all of these graduate education opportunities, the importance of graduate education from a promotion standpoint can't be overstated. But it's hard to do when you look at all of the demand signals and what you've got to do during the course of your career. So doing it on your own time is also something that is valued. And if you need assistance, support, or want to talk through that, more than happy to. But those, truly, when we look and see what someone's been able to achieve in their record, plus they've been able to get graduate education on their own time and a technical degree or a STEM degree, that points to someone who has a very well-managed career and is very focused and driven individual. So there are those opportunities, from certificate programs at NPS to distance learning education at Navy War College to other civilian universities that offer it as well. But lots of different opportunities that are out there.
With that, a quick question regarding the distance education. So those who do have to get a master's degree on their own time, there is tuition assistance available for all of us. But a lot of times for the master's classes, that amount does not cover the cost of your normal master's degrees, especially in STEM programs. So do we see anything in the pipeline in terms of maybe kind of balancing that out a little bit for those who want to get degrees on their own time? I mean, it saves the Navy money in the long run to not have to put them through Navy programs necessarily as a tour. But is there anything in the works for that, perhaps?
I've not seen any proposals right now from an increase, like a significant increase in tuition assistance, but we can go circle back with that office and see what the current planning is on it.
And there's the GI Bill, right? That's always usable to kind of plus up the piece. I know we all like to keep that for our kids and for our spouses and things down the road, but that is something that you can use to kind of cover the difference that's out there already.
That's true. Let's see, we had another question. So regarding post-NPS cyber paybacks, are CNO development program and other development programs available?
It's a great question.
Are they available? I didn't hear.
So it's a great question. I think the nexus of this probably is from some people at NPS right now. So historically, no. And there's been some, we've continued to tighten up the application process for the CNODP program. And it was run by Fleet Cyber Command. It's actually an NSA program. Fleet Cyber Command, facilitates the actual selection of who the Navy sends to the program. So the job of the detailer should look at that and say, okay, if you've been in the Naval Postgraduate School for 2 years in a academic program, then the Navy's invested 2 years in you and the money to send you to school. Then we need to go and actually get that Navy payback out of you, to use those skills that you've learned, whether it be in EE, CS, or CSL. Going to CNODP does a lot of similar things. It develops a great skill in you, and the Navy wants to get that payback in down the road. So both from it's not a good budget sense to send you for us to send you to NPS and then to turn around and send you to another internship program. Secondarily, we're not getting any bang for our buck, from the community standpoint. And then lastly, from a pure career management, that's 5 years in a training and intern type status, which from a career standpoint, there is huge risk there. So while this year we did have one CNODP intern select from NPS is going to graduate and go into the CNODP program, that's because nobody actually ever thought that something like that would happen. Despite it wasn't in the realm of the feasible that anybody thought they had to address. So next year's message will address it and make that not possible. So CNODP is great at the right time. Talk to your detailer about the right time. Doing it out of NPS immediately is not the right time.
All right, good to know. Thank you so much, sir. We had another question come in. Are there any full-time graduate programs available to chief warrant officers? I'm assuming that's the CWO that's being asked, or it could be cyber warfare officers, CWOs.
So there are not any programs, master's education, you name it. There are no programs for the warrants right now. So if you would like to do that, the way to do it is TA. I know that's not what a lot of warrants want to hear, but right now, the argument is, well, technical expertise, we want our STEM degrees as well. The policy, the way warrants truly maintain their technical expertise is through the repetition of jobs and tours. So that's why you find warrants doing, multiple tactical tours where an 1810 may not do that. So it's through repetitions of jobs, technical jobs, that allows a warrant to maintain that technical edge, not necessarily a master's education.
All right, so back to the tuition assistance, and it really not the amount that available doesn't necessarily cover all of the master's programs. So yeah, that's been a point of discussion for a while, I think, so, and ongoing. Just shifting gears again, another question that was posted. There has been some talk about Vice Admiral Tai creating or establishing a new IW strategy or vision. Is there any word about how this new strategy may affect future detailing, or what it is exactly?
So we're in the process of doing the final, final smoothing out of an information warfare community vision, her new information warfare vision. Working with both the N2 and 6 teams, as well as the flag community leads from each of the communities and a core group of folks. And it is intended to be, just as our cryptologic warfare vision put into place, kind of where are we going? What is the future hold for what our objectives are as a community and our eventual migration? It's not one that lays out a human capital strategy necessarily. That's going to be a separate document that is in work right now that the TICOM is developing, that really looks at which would affect distribution and human capital and career paths. This is really laying out the broader vision for the information warfare community. And I think when you look at there's a trifold that we posted. I think we've got it up on MillSuite as well, and we can repost it so it's at the top of the queue. That kind of lays out, the core competencies and focus for the information warfare community. But the other, key thing to look at is some of the key developments that we've had over the past few years. And I think one of the most important one that just got put into place is the information warfare commander. So this is having a post-major command 06 onboard carrier strike groups that will really act to integrate the full capabilities of the information warfare community and leverage them to the strike group commander to achieve effect. And again, historically, we'd had, our 2, our 6, our 39, and our METOC officer, and what we're intending, and that structure has remained static since the inception of the Information Dominance Corps back in 2009. What this is intended to do is really drive a focused effort to do the integration of our capabilities. Now, what does that mean? We're focused at the carrier strike group level. Well, that has implications for how we can do it potentially at the numbered fleet level, at the operational level and strategic level, as well as across the board. So I think we're at an exciting time for where we are evolving as community. Clearly, this CNO understands that we fight our networks as a warfighting platform, and we are, seen as warfighters as well within that spectrum, as opposed to, where it had always been, is it a gray hull or is it not? If it's not a gray hull, it's not a warfighter. There is an absolute understanding of what we are doing and the criticality and centrality of that to maritime operations and maritime warfare. Short answer, probably within a month we'll get this. The new vision will be posted and out, and as we'll, Admiral Ty's doing a cover letter as well for it, and then we'll get that out to the broader community.
All right, great. Thank you so much, ma'am. I know there's a lot of interest in that too, especially with some of the recent changes we've seen even in the past couple of weeks with the realignment of 1030, because of the budgeting and constraints, having to rework some of the billets and looking at restructuring, and then also establishing the N2 department on the carriers, codifying those a bit more and bringing all of the IW community under one department head. So are we going to see any of that addressed, or is this because of things that we're moving towards within the community overall?
No, it will be addressed as part of the overall vision. And not to the scale of billet structure, billet realignments, but the broad vision that we're going, that the intent is from an information warfare community.
Okay, with that realignment, has that trickled down into the billeting yet, or is that still being looked at to see how to rework those billets? Have they been changed up, moved around at all, or has the guidance come out and now it's basically tasked to you guys to help work through that and figure it out?
For the information warfare commander, or for NIAC Norfolk? Yeah,
for not just the warfare commander, but in NIAC Norfolk.
NIAC Norfolk and the Information Warfare Development Command. So NAVI has a lead for that. We have not yet gotten the approval for the establishment of the command. Again, it was supposed to go IOC in March of this year, so we hope to get that signed out shortly and have it formally established. And that will be, again, we go IOC in March of 17 with an intent to go FOC in March of 18. So there will be an evolution of billet transition that'll take place over the course of the next year. But our TICOM is working on the specifics of, particularly as we look at from a CW community standpoint, which billets at NIAC Norfolk and NIAC San Diego are involved. Are there other billets that will be realigned within our warfare development group? But this puts us, on par with the other warfighting areas in the warfighter development group, and really looking to stand this up as one of those core assignments that you're able to put our best and brightest to be able to train advanced warfighting concept development, with the information warfare training group then taking on basic level warfighting training development and across the waterfront.
Awesome. It sounds really exciting. So it'll be cool to see it kind of roll out, and also to be able to be a part of it too. We had a question going back to the information warfare commander as part of the carry strike group. Are there any insights you may have regarding the requisite skills or wickets leading up to progression towards CWO specifically desiring to go into those billets?
So it's interesting. We get a lot of questions about this. Well, the first thing, and I would say the most important thing, is get selected for major command. So what does that mean? Sustain superior performance across the entirety of your career path. We have insufficient command opportunity at the 05 and 06 level with, again, it's ranged from year to year, but about a 25 to 27% command opportunity rate for 06. So it really means, those you've got to be key leadership positions, either 05 command or executive officer at a major command. And then for your 05 and 04 milestone, certainly want to have one of those be on board a carrier strike group. The convening order language last year, carefully crafted to really reflect how do we discriminate amongst this group, because again, we're looking at those that are in or post major command, and in order to select the ones that would be able to clearly execute to the highest degree possible as the information warfare commander. So having strike group experience is, or operational experience, because it could be on an ESG as well, is core, but it really is the sustained superior performance in your record that will stand out. Get an EP in major command, and certainly have strike group experience at the 05 and 06. I have seen significantly greater interest in the deputy information warfare commander, the DIWIC 05 milestone positions than perhaps we saw 3 years ago. And I think that's all part of our continued evolution, that the carrier strike group is our critical operational unit that is out there in the maritime domain. But again, lots of paths to be able to do it, and including our NSW 05 milestones. It is a matter of doing well in your milestone and clearly getting screen selected and doing well in your major command tour that will make you most competitive for our information warfare commander job.
Hey, I'm going to step in here and ask a question quick. So this was a question about the LDO program. Is the Navy looking to keep the LDO program as a viable accession program for cryptologic warfare officers, or will the single-digit quotas remain the norm?
So yes, the LDO program is here to stay for a while, as far as I'm being told, as far as I'm planning for. I think it has some concerns just because we have dropped in quotas. We've gone from 12 to 8 to 6. So that has nothing to do with the community or the Navy not valuing the LDOs. What it is it's a manpower thing. So a lot of our LDOs that cross over to 1810, when they make lieutenant commander, they usually do, one tour, maybe a second tour, and then they leave. So what that's done is created gaps in our, 04, 05, and it's even extending into the 06 when you start looking at the manpower. So it's a manpower issue, not necessarily an LDO problem. So what we're looking at, there's the return on investment for LDOs has kind of created gaps.
I just want to jump in because we last week had a strategic workforce assessment with Vice Admiral Burke, and one of the comments was on our CWO program, Navy-wide, looking at really dialing back some of the chief warrant officer positions and roles across the Navy and chief warrant officer programs, but in the information warfare community, and particularly in IP and CW, that CNP really sees a significant role for CWO programs, and looking at potentially expanding what we're doing with our chief warrant officer program. So great news on that front, not just a recognition of what we're doing, but a recognition of how our chief warrant officers are key contributors to what we're able to do out in the fleet.
All right, sorry I dropped out of comms earlier. Thanks, Steve, for picking that up. We had a couple other questions regarding this quote-unquote detailer marketplace that some of the officers and commands have been forced to participate in, with wanting to attract certain officers to certain positions. Can you give us a little more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the nexus, it's about 18 months ago now. Previous CNO was out doing some of his fleet engagement, and what he kept getting, and primarily was from a lot of the SWOs he was talking to, were, hey, we don't like our detailing experience. We don't have good comms with our detailers. So he came back and said, okay, we need to fix this. So NPC, you guys look into how do you fix this? And so, won't bore you with the details of how it came down to us, but ultimately the CW officers became on the hook to do some of these pilot programs. The human resource officers did a pilot as well, and the medical corps is doing a pilot. So what we did is we kind of tried to look at some best practices that are out there. We looked at LinkedIn, looked at Match.com. I'm not allowed to say Tinder, but we looked at other ways that are out there where people get matched up with make their choices on who they're matched with, and tried to take some best practices that we saw out there. So what we did was we said, okay, we're going to take a cross section of officers that do not need to go to C, do not need to go to milestone, are not encumbered by JDAL, aren't coming out of school, don't have any FMP situation, don't have a spouse COLA situation. So we took this small pool of officers and said, okay, we're going to take you 10 folks, and then we're going to find 15 billets that normally when you call me and you say, hey, I'm interested in my next tour, what's out there? So we took the 15 billets that I would have been talking to you about, and we said, okay, we're going to create an inorganic environment for you to try to have inorganic conversation in hopes that our very introverted crippies would actually reach out and talk to somebody. So we took all those officers and we gave them the command's input, the command's points of contact, and then we gave all the commands and gave them some bios of all these officers, and then said, okay, for 2 weeks, go. You guys get to interact as much as you want to. And at the end of 2 weeks, officers, you're going to provide the detailer your preferences. You're going to rank the commands tier 1, 2, 3, or 4. And commands, you're going to do the same thing. Swipe left, swipe right, and tell us tier 1, 2, 3, or 4 of what do you think about these officers. And then Steve and I turned on some Marvin Gaye in the office, and we served as matchmaker for these commands and these officers. So, and what it came out, so we did this once, and every officer got a tier 1 choice, and all commands got a tier 1 or 2 officer. So it was a success. So the next time we tried to add a little bit of friction to the system, and we added some DERSEP billets, and we maybe added 1 or 2 billets that maybe they're harder to fill, right? A Bahrain billet or something like that maybe is a little bit more harder to fill sometimes, to see what the friction did to the program. And it still worked. In this case, all officers got tier 1 or 2 choices, and all commands got tier 1 or 2 officers. So again, it worked. What we found was a lot of interesting feedback, some very positive. An officer that said, hey, I would have never thought I would want to go to OpNav. I've heard terrible things. And then that officer, their first pick was OpNav. After interacting with the command, all the rumors they had heard were not true. And they ended up saying, hey, after I interacted with the command, OpNav's where I wanted to go. And other people had some feedback like, hey, but I don't like any of these choices. Give me more choices. What else is out there? So, it's not perfect, but the reality is the enlisted folks already do this with CMS ID. The officer community is moving to some form of a marketplace type environment where there will be an increased interaction between officers and commands in the coming years. What that looks like, we don't know. But by having the pilots and by us being parts of the pilot, we're getting to then help guide that conversation in the future. So there's a 3rd pilot that's going to happen later this spring. I'll turn it over to Steve to hit it real quick.
So our recommendation for this one was to try something different. So we did the first, obviously the initial 2 with 1810. So my recommendation to Commander Schultz and Captain Berg were, hey, how about we throw the Mustangs in the mix this time? So what we're going to look at doing is a group of Mustang, potentially 10. We're looking at 10 LDOs, CWOs coming off of sea duty, going to shore duty. So we figured that would be the easiest when, at least, when you're talking billet availability, things like that, and not having to cause friction with folks needing to go to a sea tour. So we're trying to make everybody look the same. That way, there's no friction on that end. So right now, we're still trying to determine which dates we're going to look at for PRD window. So as of right now, we're thinking summer of 18, potentially May of 18 to August of 18. Just so we can ensure that we have enough, a large enough crew to go through. So, and for any officer out there that could fall into that window, if you're concerned about billet availability, the billets that I would offer you are the billets they're going to be available in this marketplace. So we're not pulling the rug out from under you. Everything that I would offer will be available. It's just now it's kind of gives you an opportunity as an officer, as Brian stated, to go out, talk to the command, and figure out if that's really truly what you want to do. And vice versa. The command can go out and seek that officer that is going to fit them the best.
So the detailing process has remained pretty static over the course since I remember my first detailing experience, and it has always been really changed. So we're in the process now, and we briefed the CNO last December to really transform how we do MPT&E writ large. How do we make it more like your USAA experience, where for a lot of our folks here, all at USAA, you call up or get online and go to the calls or call the call center, and you're able to get the answers that you need on the full range of products that you have, from investments to insurance to et cetera. And that's what we're kind of trying to do, something similar for how we do MPT&E. And part of that is also transparency in the detailing process. And I think we've always been transparent. We've had the eye wall that's been able to kind of look at all the billets that are out there and all the bodies. But this is to really focus as the generations change and there's different expectations with millennial officers that come in. How do we ensure that officers feel that they have more of a choice, more input, and a sense of greater control over their career path and over their selection? And again, this really hasn't been a problem, and we're not trying to fix something with this that is within the CW community. It is looking at using marketplace dynamics and how we do officer distribution and detailing. And again, we've been at the opportunity for running these pilots has given us a chance to provide key input, and this input is going to go into how we're doing MPT&E transformation across the board. The challenge with it that you see, as we talked about those windows, is we have an opportunity with officer detailing where we can do white glove service, concierge service, where we're looking at trying to make something fit because this guy needs a cyber job, or I need to get him to command, or he's got to go to this XO job. That gets constrained when you get in a CMS ID style detailing, which is what this marketplace dynamic. So there's good that comes with it. You get to talk to the commands, you get a feel for it, but there potentially could be some constraints that really, timing becomes a much more significant driver to opportunity than it is now.
I think we see that also in other communities. I know with NSA 21, they're looking for the best athlete. And so it seems like this gives you guys the opportunity to really find that best athlete and find someone who's interested in what they may be going to next. So I'm personally excited to be able to, again, be a part of that as we see it implemented more. So we have a question that I think comes up a lot that kind of goes along with this. What exactly does penciling in mean? Because I know I've just been recently penciled in. So what does that really mean?
All right, so you can go way back, pre-computers, and believe it or not, detailing was done quarterly. Yeah. They would pull these monster binders, and they would have all the available binders, all the available jobs would be in these monster binders. And you would actually go and you would say, okay, Michaela called me today. She's interested in jobs. And I'd flip through and try to tell you what jobs are actually out there for you. And then once you said, okay, hey, that one sounds good, go ahead and give me that destroyer in Norfolk that I've been dying to go to. I would go in and I would, write in there, Michaela, destroyer Norfolk with a pencil, because if something changes, I need to be able to erase it. And that was how you got penciled in. Thankfully, some very smart detailers decided that Excel made this much easier, and we did this in a big spreadsheet.
We have now a spreadsheet that we use.
Yeah, that's what we call a slate, and we still use the term pencil in. Means we've now assigned you to a job. That is a verbal order that you are going to get hard copy orders to that job.
But again, a key thing to remember is that penciling in or verbal orders are binding on the member. They aren't binding on the detailer. And it seems unfair, but there are other things may come up. We may get a better fit bill, et cetera. But generally, we look to not only abide by any promises that are made by our predecessors, but those discussions that we make, we look to abide to the maximum extent possible. But clearly, circumstances can change, as well as what is the best fit and fill, or requirements from the Navy, because needs of the Navy, again. The reason that we are all here wearing this uniform is to fight and win our nation's wars. It's not always to get the great San Diego orders that we're all hoping for. So penciling in, and literally, I wish I had the piece. We actually have different color codings for when you're penciled or when you're propped, which means we formally entered those orders in the system and they're getting routed. But again, it is, we still go to certain, we're operating with a system that was built in the 1970s. And so it is some pretty old technology. So that's exactly what it means when folks talk about penciling in. But I like this, bringing up some history.
But it's unhackable because the Chinese don't remember DOS prompts. So we are golden.
Perfect, I love it. So normally this would be time, but if you have a few more minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, there were several questions that we weren't able to get to. And I know on my end at this point, I'm going to give a shout out to Lieutenant Mark de Guzman, who's standing my watch right now so that I could be here. So he's suffering, not us. We'll keep going. So this is a two-part question. The first one, for officers wishing to be assigned to billet supporting NSW and SOF, what skill sets or attributes are looked for to successfully screen for these assignments? And then also, for those who have been a part of NSW and love it, most of us do, and want to do a second tour, it seems that we support specializations in the surface communities. There's PCS afloat, CRC, DIWIC, IWC. But what about in NSW or air subs? Like, are there specific specialties that we support there?
First, I'll jump in a second.
Yeah, great question, and I'll answer this part, and I'll let Steve jump in as well. There's a lot of they're looking for the right fit. They want they come up with a kind of a prerequisite. Hey, we want at least a second tour officer. We want somebody that's performed well where they're at. And then they want to get the whole picture. When you go out for one of those NSW screeners, the one thing I can promise you is they're going to find, all the skeletons in your closet, and they're going to stress you out a little bit, and they're going to see how you do under pressure, because that's really what they're looking for. So there is no set model. I would say having some broad expertise in SIG and Cyber and EW, understanding the larger, SIG and enterprise, and then, being able to work as a member of a team, having some determination. When something gets hard, you don't quit. All those kinds of things that we all hope we have deep down inside. That comes through in the screener, and I'll let Steve piggyback on kind of from his 2 cents, having just come from Denver.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I sat a handful of officer screening boards, and I got this question a lot, and people would call me prior to coming out. Hey, what are you looking for? The truth is that they want an officer who is them. They don't want an officer to show up and try and be the cool guy or think they're there to be a Navy SEAL, because that's not what the job is about. You're there to be the best cryptologic warfare officer you can be. They're looking for technically competent officers who have an aptitude and ability to learn and think quick on their feet. So those are all the things that they do their best to try and get out of you in that 2 to 5 day screening period. On top of psych exams and other interesting Q&A sessions. But the opportunity to screen is awesome. So, the key to it is just being yourself, being technically competent. Physical fitness, a lot of officers, will hit me up and say, hey, what about the PT? I'm a little concerned. Frankly, if you're concerned, then you're not ready. Confidence is a big part of it. So, you're going to be measured the second you walked in there, in the room. So if you're not confident in yourself and who you are and who you can be, then you're probably at a loss already. So being confident in who you are is a big deal. It's a personality-driven community. So having a strong personality, being able to, speak up, when things aren't quite right. Because I tell you right now, you'll have anywhere from a, second-class special operator to, an 05 commander that'll tell you that you're wrong. And they believe that they may know what you are doing better than you do. So if you cannot stick up for yourself, you're going to hurt them as well as the mission and your sailors. So it's like I said, it's a tough community, but it's an awesome community.
And for those that want to do nothing but NSW, and I certainly understand that, and God knows, hear it enough from these guys, but just like you talked about, there are lots of surface jobs. There's a ton of cyber jobs. Can I just do cyber boss? Why is it, detailer, that you want to drive me to do something other than cyber? And again, can't I retour and do NSW? You look at the career path, again, what we do is those are key experiences that we look and build into the career path to prepare you for the next higher pay grade. And what we need, for folks to be able to operate effectively as an 04 is not the same recipe for what's going to make you successful as an 05, which is not necessarily the same recipe which is going to make you successful as an 06. You need to build on these experiences, broaden your exposure in order to be able to effectively operate, and again, as a senior leader in the community. So that is why we look to get diversity in the record. There are certainly opportunities to do multiple tours, with a well-managed career, opportunities to do multiple tours in one or two of those areas, but you want to look at how are you building out your diversity as a whole. And that's one that really is, there's no set pat answer. It really is something of looking at the individual record, looking at your timing, looking at when you're coming into zone for certainly promotion opportunities. What are your goals? That discussion with the detailer will give you some tailored feedback on do you have time? Have you built time into your career path that you're able to do this? Or do you really need to go get your STEM master's degree, your graduate education, to get your your executive officer leadership tour or other types of exposures and experiences that have kind of left holes in your record. And the focus is how to make your record as competitive as possible, but really how to build those core experiences that you need, those core assignments that make you effective as a senior leader.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, ma'am. So the next couple questions are going to be a little disjointed because they didn't quite fit into other discussions, but we want to ask them anyway. So at the IWC billets being filled by 1810s and 1820 06s recently, is there any discussion to have the DIWC cross detailed, or is that already occurring?
So IWC is going to be all 4 communities. So Captain Mike Brooks is headed out to go as the Intel IWC, and then Captain Robert Witzlow will be a meteorological or oceanographer who's going to head out to an IWC position. So we'll have all 4 communities slated this year as IWCs. DIWCs, again, much like we did for the ROE for how we do cross-detailing commands, our focus is cross-detailing those leaderships at the 06 level, and you are operating within your core competency as an 05, so within your designator as an 05. So right now we're really focused on our DIWCs, and just like we would for the Strike Group N2 and the Strike Group Deputy N6, those 05 positions as being within designator and not be cross-detailed.
All right, awesome. Thank you, ma'am. And I think I didn't hit this question before. Will an 04 XO tour be a requirement for an 05 command?
It will not. When we go, and again, I encourage everyone to go back and read the convening order language from the last board. We are focused when you sit in a panel and you're looking at records for milestone. It is different when we're looking at records for command and executive officer. And you're looking at it through the lens of leadership, experience of leadership and performance in leadership positions. We have insufficient formal leadership positions, so we're also looking at where is our informal leadership. Did you run a CFT? Did you have a interagency group that you were running? Do you have were you able to operate perhaps in an NSA assignment where you had a significant informal leadership role? So we're really focused on leadership. Now, executive officer positions, again, with insufficient, got about a 9% command opportunity rate for 05. It's growing with NIAC Maryland and the stand-up of 6 05 commands, but still insufficient command opportunity rate. So that means insufficient XO opportunity rate as well. So OIC positions and other leadership opportunities are those that get you in the best position to compete for command. But a strong record and, again, superior performance in any of these assignments with documented leadership will make you best able to compete for command. And there have been, clearly we've selected folks for major command who haven't had 05 command, and we've selected folks for 05 command that had not had 04XO. I was one. I went to be CO of NIAC Bahrain and did not have an executive officer position as an 04. So I think that is one of the benefits of our community is that there are a variety of different paths that can lead you on to success. And that's, again, the focus of these milestone jobs we highlight that performance in milestone, but ensuring that you've got great documentation in your fitness reports, again, our formal record that we use to evaluate before the boards is the key to success.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am. So takeaway from that one is grow where you're planted. And that's that's the best way to go. Let's see, 2 more questions. So with the stand-up of the IWDC, are those billets going to be coded with any subspecialties like EE or CS or CIS as being requirements or things that are looked for?
Right now, no, but we expect that there probably will be as we go through that. I mean, we're doing the shifting these billets over in the current assignments, but we're going to want to ensure that, particularly for those core assignments, that we have an expectation that they're going to have certain skill sets or requirements that they need that we'll want to code. The concern is you don't want to get ahead of coding billets until you have the inventory to support it, and so that is the challenge of wanting to be very cautious as we go forward in how we code these requirements and background. And had one recently where they're like, nope, we only want post commander command. And I'm like, well, then you realize you're really constraining your opportunity to get the best fit and fill. So there is a likely expectation that we'll have some of these that will get coded eventually, but right now there's not.
All right, one other question. Thank you again, ma'am. Has there been any progress in the expansion of the CWE career path up to the 06 level?
This was a topic at the Strategic Workforce Assessment, and looking at expanding it to the 05 level, not 06, and looking at, for an interim period, instead of 5 years of commissioned service, extending out to 8 years of commissioned service. So the details on that are being finalized, developed, and certainly need to be socialized with our leadership. And then as soon as we get that, we'll ensure that we get that out to the broader community. But yes, our cyber warfare engineers have certainly, been demonstrating terrific value. We see that as certainly something that will be a focus, a continued growth area. So those decisions on how are we going to build out into the up to the 05 level, what are those, what does it look like? Will we accept lateral transfers from other community at the 04, 05, or potentially 03? All of that we'll look to refine and get that word out to the broader community. Steve, did you want to add anything on CWE?
Well, I think Captain alluded to, it's also depending on the billets. So, I mean, there needs to be requirements. So as we potentially expand from 5 to 8 years, so what does a second tour for CWE look like? Where are those billets going to be located? So, we're still trying to determine the requirements for those billets. Obviously, there needs to be a job, for them. They can't just sit and stay at Nick Wedge or there in the Fort Meade area doing what they do, because we still need to bring in the next crop of CWEs.
All right, great, thank you. So one final question in regard to LDOs, will there be any preference shown to the more junior high quality applicants in an attempt to avoid that talent void seen in the field grade officer levels?
Looking for best quality candidate. That's it. So, I sat as a recorder on the LDO CWO board a couple years back. I mean, they're looking for the best, period. Whether they're right at the end of the window or, they're 8 years, not even a chief, So it's who looks best on paper, who's going to be the best return on investment, all those things, because, it shouldn't matter. I don't know. Return on investment's a big thing, I mean, do we have another Captain, Brokaw, Captain Eaton, Commander Lavello, or, Commander Yates out there, some of those previous, LDOs who've moved on 1810 and done great things, COs, things like that. So I don't know. So, do we have true believers out there that'll pick it up at, 13 years and go on to do 40? I don't know. The best thing we can do is put the best qualified candidate in the position and hope for the best.
All right, great. I lied. This is the last question, I promise. We had one last write-in. How difficult is it to change that quote unquote penciled in on the detailer's end?
Hopefully you heard what Captain Berg says. Penciling in is binding on the member, not binding on the detailer. So, I guess I back up one level, right? So the detailer, our job, and maybe we didn't properly explain this at the very beginning, the detailers work for you, right? So the detailer, our job is we represent the member. When in doubt, we default to the member. There's a placement officer here for every command out there in the Navy. There are placement officers. They represent the command. And then we also have an officer community manager, and their job is to represent the community and look at the community health. So we look out for the member. That said, we have to fill billets. So if you negotiate with me that you want that sweet destroyer in Norfolk and we hook that up, and for the next 8 months, you're penciled into that thing, and 3 months out, you come to me and you say, I don't know, maybe I just want short duty in San Diego. Well, there's 2 problems with that. 1, your order's already in the system. They've already gone through all the wickets, and you've already gone through all the checks to get those orders. And 2, everybody else that could go to that sweet destroyer in Norfolk is already under alternate orders. So, you put the community, and then you put me as your detailer in a huge bind. So that's why we say those are binding on you. So if we're far enough out and you have a compelling case, i.e. family emergency, something comes up, we'll always work with you. But once you're penciled in, I say, tell me you're ready to commit and understand that these are binding on you. Always make that very clear. And if anyone who's negotiated with me, I say, okay, I'm happy to pencil you in once you email me and you give it to me in writing that you want to be penciled in for those orders. So that way you have a record, I have a record, and you're stuck.
So you kind of saw the immediate response of all 3 of us, because this is something that does come up on a fairly frequent basis. And again, we're working to balance all 3 of those. So if we're, if it's possible, if we can, we'll certainly look at it. So if you've got that question, call, talk to us. we'd be more than happy to look at it. But again, much will depend on timing and the specifics of the request. So this is all highly individual, but timing will drive much of this. But there's always an opportunity when we look at what the requirements are and what the opportunities are as well.
All right, great. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. We got through a lot of great questions. Unfortunately, we didn't get to all the questions, but I think we've run out of time. And I know Lieutenant Mark Diesman will hate me for being super late. But thank you for taking the time to do this. And I think bottom line is keep those lines of communication open. If there's any questions, we should all feel free to reach out to you with any questions that we have. So if there are any questions out in the audience that didn't get answered, please feel free to reach out to our detailers here. Their information's on the NPC website under PERS 47. So unless do you have any follow-up remarks at all before we close out?
Just have one closing one is, again, we, the best part of our job is the interaction we have with the constituents, the interaction we have with the members. So please do not hesitate to call. We are constantly looking to improve our communications as well as improve what we're posting on MilSuite. So if you're not a MilSuite member, please join and become a MilSuite member and follow us on MilSuite. And if you're not seeing something that you need or are interested in, again, let us know, because the focus, we want to ensure that we're improving communication both with our cryptologic warfare as well as across the broader IWC. And generally speaking, if you're not getting the answer, it's because we're not aware that the question's being asked. We'd be more than happy to.
All right, thank you so much. Again, I think this concludes our session. These forum sessions are always so great. So we hope to be able to do this again probably a year from now. I think we circle back to you guys every year or so. But again, thank you. And with that, we will close out. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you. You too.